Welcome everyone. Today we will be doing Unit 2 from our English Kumud Bharati textbooks. Today's lesson from Unit 2 is about three questions. In this lesson we will see a king, questions that this king has, and how does he get this solutions for those questions. The writer Leo Tolstoy is a very renowned Russian writer. In fact, he's considered as one of the best writers in Russia. It's a parable which is like a story which is short, and at the end of it, it gives us a meaning or a moral to the story. Over here, the writer talks about three very important questions. And like the king, even we need to know the answers to these questions in order to have a lovely life. So let us start today with this chapter, and I hope it teaches you all a lesson in life. This is just a brief of the lesson, so you have a rough idea of what to expect in this video. As you could see in the first block on the top left, a king has everything. He lives in a castle, yet there are question marks around him. There are questions that he would like answers to. The first question is, what is the right time to do something? The second, who are the most necessary people to listen to? And the third question is, he wants to know how he will know the most important thing that he should be doing in his life. And these three questions are something that the king tries to get answers to from a lot of people. He finally goes to a little monk who lives in the woods. And this monk or hermit helps him get the answers to the questions that he is looking for. We see in the third box, which is on the top right, the king does manual labor also when he sees that the hermit is not able to do the work himself very efficiently. The king is so desperate to get his answers that he even takes the spade and does the work of what the hermit was doing. In the fourth box, you see that another person joins them, and that person is severely injured. Okay, and this becomes like a hindrance to the answers that the king is waiting for. So the king himself takes care of this wounded man. And in the fifth box, you see that the next day the man is saved. His wounds are much better and are now not life threatening. And that is when the hermit tells him the answer to the three questions that he was looking for. We'll now move to our textbook and see how the writer has put it across in our lesson books. Let's start with the lesson. Once a certain king had an idea. If he always knew the right time to begin everything, if he knew who were the right people to listen to and whom to avoid, the most important things to do, he would never fail in anything that he would undertake. And above all, if he always knew what was the most undertake, since he was convinced that he was right in thinking this way, he had a proclamation made in his kingdom. He would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what the right time was for each action, who the most necessary people were, and how he might know that the most important thing to do. Many learned people came to the court, but they all gave different answers. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. Others declare that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action, but that not letting oneself be absorbed in the idle pastime. One should always attend to all that was going on and then do that was most essential. Yet, others said that it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, and that the king should instead have a council of wise people who would help him to fix proper time for everything. Equally were the answers to the second question. Some said that the people, the king, the most needed were the counselors, others the priest, others the doctors, while some said the warriors were the most necessary. To the third question about what was the most important occupation, some replied that the most important thing in the world was science. Others said it was skill in warfare, and others again that it was religious worship. The king was convinced by none of these answers and gave the reward to none. He decided instead to go to a hermit who was widely renowned for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a small hut in the forest, which he never left. He spoke only to common folk. So the king put on simple clothes and approaching the hermit's cell, dismounting his horse and left his bodyguards behind. When the king arrived, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. He greeted the king, but went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he struck the ground with a spade and turned over a little earth. He breathed heavily. The king went up to him and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you the answer to three questions. How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I most need? And to whom should I therefore pay more attention? and what affairs are the most important and need my first attention. The hermit listened to the king but said nothing. He just spat on the hand and resumed digging. The king watched in silence for a while. Then, feeling sorry for the hermit, he said, "You are tired. Let me take the spade and work a while for you." The hermit silently handed over the spade and sat down on the ground. When he had dug two beds, the king stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit again gave no answer, but rose, stretched out his hand for the spade, and said, "Now rest a while and let me work a bit." But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. 1 hour passed and another. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last stuck the spade in the ground and said, "I came to you, wise one, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me none, please say so, and I will go home." "Here comes someone running," said the hermit. "Let us see who it is." The king turned around and saw a bearded man come running out of the forest. The man held his hands pressed against his stomach, and blood was flowing from under them. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground, moaning feebly. The king and the hermit unfastened the man's clothes. There was a large wound in his stomach. The king washed it as well as he could and bandaged it with the handkerchief and the towel the hermit had. But the blood would not stop flowing. And the king again and again removed the bandages soaked with warm blood and washed and rebandaged the wound. When at last the blood stopped flowing, the man revived and asked for something to drink. The king brought some fresh water and gave it to him. Meanwhile, the sun had set and it had become cool. So the king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut. The man lay there quietly with his eyes closed. By now, the king was so tired after his walk and the work he had done that he lay down himself and also fell asleep. When he awoke in the morning, it took him some time to remember where he was and who was the strange bearded man lying by his side and gazing intently at him. "Forgive me," said the bearded man in a weak voice. When he saw that the king was awake and was looking at him, "I do not know you, and I have nothing to forgive you for," said the king. "You do not know me, but I know you. I am the enemy of yours who swore to revenge himself on you because you executed his brother and seized his property. I knew you had gone alone to see the hermit, and I resolved to kill you on your way back. But the day passed and you did not return. So I came out of my ambush to find you. Your bodyguards recognized me and wounded me. I escaped from them but would have bled to death had you not dressed my wound. I wished to kill you, but you have saved my life. Now, if I live, and if you wish it, I'll serve you all my life. The king was very glad to have made peace with an enemy so easily and to have gained him for a friend. He not only forgave him, but said he would send the man and his own physician to attend to him. The king then took leave of him and went out of the hut to look for the hermit. Before going away, he wished once more to beg for an answer to the questions that he had asked. The hermit was outside, on his knees, sowing seeds in the bed that had been dug the day before. The king approached him and said, "For the last time, I pray you to answer my question, wise man." "You have already been answered," said the hermit, still crouching on his legs and looking up at the king who stood before him. "What do you mean?" asked the king. "Do you not see?" replied the hermit. "If you had not pitied my weakness yesterday and stayed to dig the beds for me, you would have gone back and been killed by that man. So the most important time was when you were digging the bed, and I was the most important man, and to do me good was your most important business. Afterwards, the most important time was when you were attending to the man. For if you did not bound the wound, he would have died without having made peace with you. So he was the most important man, and what you did for him was the most important business. Remember, then, there is only one time that is important. Now, it is the most important time because it's the only time when we have any power. The most necessary person is the one with whom you are, for who you do not know whether you will ever be dealing with anyone else. And the most important thing to do, this person good, because for the purpose alone were we sent into their life. Written by Leo Tolstoy. So this brings us back to the brief of the lesson that we started. Just to do a quick revision, we see a king who has three questions to be answered. He goes to a hermit's house in the forest and spends some time over there with the hermit, helping the hermit out, waiting for his answers. When a man comes there who is wounded, this wounded man's life is saved by the king. And the next day, the king comes to know that this particular man had actually come there to kill the king. But because the king had saved his life, he he owed his life to the king and would go on to serve the king. And the answers to the questions that the king had come to the hermit for. The first question, the most important time and the moment you are in is because it is the only time that you can control. You cannot control your past, until a certain extent, you cannot control your future. So, your present is the most important time that you need to control, and you need to spend it with the correct people. So, that's the second question. Which kind of people do you need to be around with? The most important people are who you are with, because you never know when you may have to deal with another person. Okay? And the third important question, or the answer rather to the question, is the most important task is doing good to whoever you are with. And if you follow the answers to these three questions, not only will you be successful, but you will be happy and you will make, or rather keep, other people happy around you as well. So when children you are studying, study and concentrate on your books. When you are playing, enjoy yourself. And when you are with your parents, give them all the attention. When you are in school, enjoy the days of your school. I hope this lesson will help you in life. Before we finish, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, like it if you want and you feel that we are doing a good job, and click on the bell icon so that you can be notified whenever a new video is uploaded. Thanks a lot and have a wonderful day.